How comforting it is to know that when you see a celebrity in the public eye, they may have had a couple run-ins with the law.
Happens to the best of us.
I guess so. Anyways, welcome to So to Speak. I'm Evan Mead.
I'm Lyle Groniger.
And while we do not condone any illegal activities on this podcast, today we're going to kind of play somewhat of a recollection game when it comes to some of our favorite celebrities, rock stars, actors, genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropists, who have had a couple of run-ins with the law. So the criteria for this, we're going to give you 20 celebrities that have, been in, who have
entangled with the law.
Yeah, so the criteria is, at minimum, they had to have been arrested or charged. And some of these guys will have pretty hefty jail fines on them. That's the main criteria. So now that we got that out of the way, I'll tell you who we're not going to talk about. There will be no mentioning of Donald Trump on this list. I feel like he would be too easy of a target. And if you want to hear me rant about Trump, go listen to the 2-part Trump podcast that I did with my friends Jody and Assad before the 2020 election. Although, as of this recording, it is worth mentioning that the New York District Attorney's Office has started a criminal investigation, not a civil investigation, a criminal investigation into the business dealings of the Trump organization.
Oh, good for him.
Good for him is right.
And also, we will not be mentioning the perpetrators behind the Me Too movement, as we feel like that's just an entirely separate topic.
So
that's a whole new can of worms right there.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to have to dedicate a separate episode.
And we can. It's just, we got a list here of other infractions.
The Me Too movement episode of So to Speak will come soon.
So what are we starting off with today?
Well, today I would like to... Well, let's just pull up this list of here. First, I'm going to talk about Mick Jagger.
Of the Rolling Stones?
Yeah.
What has he done with himself?
What has he done with himself? Well, what hasn't the guy done with himself? He's like... The guy's like ancient.
Yeah, he's like 200 years old.
Yeah, 200 years old. Have you seen that little meme of him... holding a photograph of Betty White as a baby? It's not Betty White actually, but yeah. Okay. So Mick Jagger, frontman for the Rolling Stones, has been charged with possession several times, including a notorious 1967 drug bust. In 1972, Jagger was arrested in Rhode Island for assaulting a Providence Journal photographer. While his celebrity crimes have mostly been forgotten, Jagger was very rock and roll in his day.
I was gonna say that sounds about right.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
I gotta say, it's some people. It's just like when you have a reputation like the Rolling Stones, sometimes you can kind of get away with like things like drug possession and stuff like that. It's almost like expected of them.
Yeah. How is he not dead from all those drugs in his system? Like I said, he's ancient.
He's embalmed with all those chemicals in his body. So my first pick of the night is none other than the late great Rip Torn.
Oh.
This is a somewhat recent involvement. Torn was arrested after breaking into the Litchfield Bancorp branch office in Lakeville, Connecticut, where he maintained a residence. He was living there at the time, and he was charged with carrying a firearm without a permit while intoxicated and committing first-degree burglary and second-degree criminal trespassing. From what Torn recalls, he broke into the bank thinking it was his home. In court, the lawyer told his judge his client needed help with alcohol abuse and they could start treatment immediately in New York. He was released on a $100,000 bail. I mean...
His rich friends had the money.
You gotta be pretty loaded to enter a bank and think that's your house. I mean, I don't know. That doesn't sound so... I don't know if that's burglary or if it's just, like, bad timing. I feel like it's...
Now...
That just counts as trespassing, I think.
We've got 18 more people to go through tonight, but I am going to say this. The first 10 are going to be quite tame in terms of, like, the crimes that they committed.
Some of them, I guess. I don't know. We're going to have some fun. The first beginning of this, we're going to go a little lighter.
Yeah, okay. So, is that all you have to say about, Daddy?
You make your daddy proud.
Okay, I'm going to talk about, Martha Stewart, that other celebrity who also hosted The Apprentice. Domestic queen Martha Stewart got into trouble after a little inside trading. In 2004, a jury found her guilty on four counts of obstructing justice and lying to investigators about a stock sale. She served. You want to know how long she served?
How long did she serve?
She served 5 measly months in jail for her crimes.
5 months.
Yeah. Who do you have to talk about?
How do you feel about Martha Stewart? Like, do you feel like she got off easy?
To be perfectly honest, I feel like the fact that she's rich obviously means that, insider trading is going to give you a slap on the wrist. But had she been a low-level investor, I feel like she would have gone in the slammer for at least a few years, not just a few months.
Yeah. It's nice to see some white-collar crimes on the list.
To be honest, I was actually coming up while this whole scandal was going on, and I did hear, Martha Stewart, in jail, and, she's, I think, if you're gonna game the system and lose at gaming the system, be prepared to do the time. Mm-hmm. But, had she been, a low-level investor and found a way to game the system like that, she'd be in jail for a lot longer. So it's rich white privilege.
Speaking of white-collar crimes, we also have Felicity Huffman. Who's that? I don't really care. But anyways, Felicity Huffman pleaded guilty to federal charges for paying $15,000 to have a proctor correct SAT questions answered incorrectly by her daughter. She was sentenced to 14 days in prison, a $30,000 fine, and 250 hours of community service, as well as 1 year supervised release for her crimes.
Jeez. Wow.
Let's open the floodgates for a larger scandal involving college admissions in the following year. Yeah.
And again, rich white privilege, because there was a black lady in another part of the United States who got a lengthy, years in jail sentence because she lied on an application so her daughter could get into a good school. So that's horseshit. And by the way, compared to Martha Stewart, this makes Martha Stewart look like she did hard time. Just going back to our last pick.
14 days in prison.
14 fucking days.
That's way less.
That's a vacation. That's time off work.
It's a fortnight.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I remember mostly out of this was that Ricky Gervais did a pretty funny joke at the Golden Globes or whatever, where he was like, you know what, I feel so bad for the daughter. I mean, the worst thing her dad ever did was just star in Wild Hogs.
Oh.
Who's the favorite parent now, or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. And I guess I'm next.
Who's Felicity Huffman's husband? Who's she married to again?
Fuck, I always forget his name. He was in Fargo.
William H. Macy.
William H. Macy. That was his name. William H. Macy.
Wow.
Next up is Marky Mark Wahlberg.
Oh, Marky Mark. Now, with this entry, Lyle's going to read it, but he went to jail for something that I actually had no idea he went to jail for. I had no idea he did this. Take it away, Lyle.
Yeah, well, this was going back quite a few years. Back in the late 80s, in April 1988, a then 17-year-old Mark Wahlberg assaulted a middle-aged Vietnamese American man on the street, calling him racial slurs along the way and knocking him unconscious with a large wooden stick. Wahlberg then attacked a second Vietnamese American man later the same day, punching him in the eye. When he was arrested and returned to the scene of the first assault, he told police officers, "I'll tell you now, that's the motherfucker whose head I split open." Later, Wahlberg would explain that he was high on PCP at the time, and investigators also noted that Wahlberg made numerous unsolicited racial statements about Asian countries.
Does it say how old he was when this
He
happened?
was I just said he was 17 years old
Oh,
when
okay.
this happened. He was charged with attempted murder, pleaded guilty to felony assault, and was sentenced to 2 years in jail, but served only 45 days on his sentence. Wahlberg believed that he had left the second victim permanently blind in one eye, although the victim later stated that he had lost the eye during the Vietnam War while serving the South Vietnamese Army, who were fighting alongside American troops.
Wow.
So he wasn't even on the wrong side there.
Wow.
To be fair, in 2016, while requesting a pardon for his conviction on the assault of the victim, Wahlberg said that he had met with the victim and apologized for the horrific acts. He was later publicly forgiven.
That's really nice. So, and also Mark Wahlberg is one of those, inspiring celebrity stories where he hit a low point and then he turned his life around. So good on him.
Probably should have known better, though. I mean, that's not good.
Seriously, though, don't do drugs, kids.
It's not something that gets brought up too much in conversation.
Yeah, no, hey, remember when Mark Wahlberg, wailed on those two Vietnamese kids?
Remember when Mark Wahlberg had a video game?
Seriously?
Yeah, it was a music video game where you made music videos out of clips in the game to good vibrations and all that bullshit.
Seriously? Wow.
That's a crime in and of itself.
Wow. So the next guy I'm going to talk about is another assault perpetrator, Emil Hirsch. The actor Emil Hirsch was charged with aggravated assault and sentenced to 15 days in jail after he choked a female movie executive at the 2015 Sundance Film Festival in 2015. Duh. He pled guilty to the charges and was also ordered to pay a $4,750 fine and perform 50 hours of community service. First of all, how the fuck do you get off on just 2 weeks in jail for assaulting a studio executive?
I was gonna say, because I saw him in other things, in 2018 I saw him in Freaks.
Yeah.
And, 2 years ago I saw him in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He was still getting work, so...
I mean, maybe they forgave him. I don't know. Well, I don't know what...
It's kind of hard to say.
Also, I'm not
saying...
I'm not condoning his actions at all, but what was the context of him assaulting a studio exec? Not that it's ever acceptable to do that. I'm just curious. We don't know the context, so...
No, we don't.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that's weird.
I guess it got dealt with quietly.
Yeah.
Next on the list, here's a real character. We have Mr. Mel motherfucking Gibson. Who took a plea deal to avoid charges of battery in 2011 after he admitted domestic violence with his spouse. In 2014, he then returned to court and had a no contest plea expunged from his record. Additionally, the celebrity also has been pulled over and charged with multiple drink DUIs. And one of the occasions, he infamously made many sexist and anti-Semitic remarks to the arresting officers, which definitely made headlines.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, just generally speaking, the guy just had a complete downward spiral after a while.
Yeah, the guy was blacklisted in Hollywood for many years because of that shit.
And it's so weird, because, he was, he's kind of had a small resurgence. He was in, Daddy's Home 2, and...
He directed Hacksaw Ridge.
He directed again, yeah, and then he also starred in one of the Expendables movies. And then, there's another controversy where he was working on a movie with Winona Ryder, and then, he found out she was Jewish, and he was just like, you either get her off this project or I'm leaving.
Jesus Christ.
So they were just like, bye, and he left. What the hell? Some people just never learn, I guess.
Yeah.
That's the lesson here. Alright, speaking of people who never learn, we have next Mr. T.J. Miller.
Oh, lordy.
This guy has such a gamut of, offenses on him. I'm not surprised he's not really working so much these days. He's had many allegations in the past, going back all the way from 2001, but...
and that's just for sexual assault,
That's the allegations. And then we have... one instance where he cyberbullied a transgendered film critic and constantly referred to her by her dead name and called her a man and all that.
Oh.
Yeah, and then there was one time where he was arrested at LaGuardia Airport in Queens, New York, by making a fake bomb threat while aboard a train.
I remember hearing about that. I'm like, why?
And then there was another instance where he assaulted an Uber driver in 2016 over a debate he had with when he was discussing with the man about Donald Trump.
Oh, man.
People get pretty wrongly impassioned about that.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of like misconduct accusations, particularly on his work with Silicon Valley, and he was later dropped from the show.
Wow.
So yeah, a lot of ugly stuff.
Threatening to bomb a train and assaulting an Uber driver are what this guy's gotten up to. I mean, all the other stuff is like an allegation, and but was he charged for the whole cyberbullying incident, or did he have any repercussions? Like, did he get fired from anything?
Doesn't really seem like it seems that she wanted to retaliate, but she was afraid that Miller would take harsh legal action against her.
Oh, that sucks.
So it was reported, but not too much was done. Doesn't seem like he got any like major like repercussions from that. But yeah, because of this, he's been removed from a lot of projects, such as the newest How to Train Your Dragon and Silicon Valley. And he's not going to appear in Deadpool 3, so it's pretty safe to say he's done.
Oh no, I'm so sad about that. He wasn't even my favorite part of the Deadpool movies, quite honestly. Mm-hmm. My next guy also made appearances in a few Marvel movies. You may have heard of him. Robert Downey Jr., or best known by his celebrity initials, RDJ. Now one of the highest paid actors on planet Earth, Robert Downey Jr. wasn't always on top. In the 1990s, he struggled with addiction. He was arrested in 1996 for possession of cocaine, heroin, and a pistol. 2 weeks later, he was arrested again for entering a neighbor's home while under the influence of drugs. He was placed on probation and ordered to attend treatment for drug addiction, but after violating his parole for the third time in 1999, a judge ordered him to go to prison. He served 1 year and 3 months. And then for a long time, no one would hire him in the movies. And then Kiss Kiss Bang Bang was his like comeback. But then 2 years later, in 2008, Tropic Thunder and Iron Man hit theaters, and then he was just the film studio darling from that point forward. And by film studio, I mean Marvel Studio darling, because they pay that guy makes an obscene amount of money for every Marvel movie that he's in. Do you know he made tens of millions just to be in Spider-Man: Homecoming for 5 minutes?
Yeah, I know. It's nice because I remember there was one story told. In the first Iron Man where he's like, "I want an American cheeseburger, and then I'm gonna be back home."
Yeah.
And he specifically goes to Burger King.
Yeah.
Well, the story behind that is that at one of his lowest points of his life, he had like guns and like drugs in his car in his trunk, and he was driving by Burger King, and he was like really planning on like driving off a cliff or like committing suicide in any number of ways he had in his car, whether it was like overdose or a gunshot or something. He was just ready to throw it all away, and he was just waiting in the drive-thru and waiting for his food to arrive, and he kind of just realized that his life was like a precious gift, and he had to like take better care of himself. Yeah. And that was a stepping stone towards the right direction when it came to his rehabilitation.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he did, and that's like that parallels Iron Man so well, because in the movie he is a sleazy weapons contractor who goes to test one of his new kaboom boom toys in Afghanistan, and then some terrorists capture him, and then it's like, oh fuck, they're using my guns. Like, there's under the table trading, and they're using my guns to slaughter American soldiers, and that's not cool. I will no longer be a part of a world that is warmonger, is an ironmonger, and just makes weapons. And then, ironically, to quote the ironmonger Obadiah Stane, "Try to win the world of weapons. You gave it its best one ever." But yeah.
Anyways, that just adds more context to that scene where he's like grabs a Burger King.
Yeah, no, I thought that was really nice.
Yeah.
And
but no, he's doing very well for himself. It's not easy to come back. He's doing incredibly well. He's doing extreme, fantastic, amazing, wonderful. Yeah. So many adjectives. He's doing great. And that doesn't always happen to some people. So it's nice that he got a second wind.
Yeah. Now, I don't mean to put you in the hot seat, Lyle, but if it makes you feel any better, my good friend Laura also does not like Robert Downey Jr. She thinks he's a little arrogant. She thinks he's over the top. And you kind of have a pet peeve with Tony Stark.
I don't like Iron Man. That doesn't mean I don't like Robert Downey Jr.
Okay, sure. Yeah. But like, a lot of people just see, some people have criticized the Marvel movies and say, oh, Robert Downey Jr. is just playing himself when he plays Iron Man. And
it's a role he's very comfortable in, I will say that.
For sure, yeah.
We're not really here to talk about Marvel movies. Anyways,
we're going to get sidetracked. So,
speaking of actors who had a life surrounded by drugs and eventually got a second wind, our next person on the list is Tim Allen. This one's often quite a shocker to most people because back in the late 70s, Allen was arrested for drug trafficking. Following his release from prison in 1981, he returned to comedy and moved up to LA to become a regular performer at the Comedy Store. So, yeah, he was caught in the middle of, airport just trafficking, and he eventually had to sell out all the people he worked for in order to get, an earlier parole.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not a pretty rough time for a young man like himself. He has a really sick mustache in his mugshot, though. I'm kind of surprised he always kept himself.
You gotta put that up on the screen.
No, I'll show it. It's just he has such a macho mustache, and I'm like, I wonder why he just kept it clean shaved. Maybe it was just a reminder of what he used to do when he was a dumb kid.
I feel like his agent told him to lose the mustache because it's inconsistent with the new image he's trying to paint as the new and improved Tim Allen.
New and improved Tim Allen.
Yeah. It's worth mentioning that one of the first production he ever did with Disney was not Toy Story. It was the Santa Claus, and Disney had a very, very firm no hiring of ex-convicts on their projects. At least in the cast, I wonder what your criminal record has to be if you're gonna go work on a Disney production. But anyway, so
they have pretty high standards.
They really do, and even if you want to go work at Disneyland, your record has to be pretty clean. But anyway, so they made an exception so that Tim Allen could star in the Santa Claus, and then is it kind of fair to say that had that not happened, then he may not have been Buzz Lightyear in Toy Story?
Yeah, or he was also popular on Home Improvement, don't forget.
That is very true.
That's what got him attention, and then he did Santa Claus. So to have that criminal record, and yet you can still be the lead in a popular family sitcom, and then move on to Disney, and actually skirt the rule that they have about ex-cons.
Yeah,
that's actually kind of respectable. I kind of appreciate that they were willing to give him a second chance.
Oh yeah, no kidding.
And those are some of his finest roles too. So he was the right man for the job.
Yeah, it's too bad though that this isn't a crime, but his political hot takes have kind of alienated him from the mainstream limelight in terms of who is a relevant actor anymore. And I feel like Tim Allen could use a good comeback. His politics aside, unless you count, Last Man Standing.
Yeah, Last Man Standing is kind of his bread and butter right now, and that's a pretty popular show.
Wasn't that show canceled?
It was, but it was brought back after the Roseanne show fell through because Roseanne got canceled.
Yeah.
In person, not in the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's Tim Allen. What's your next?
My next pick is Charlie Sheen. Oh boy. Just a quick side note. I was in high school when Charlie Sheen was at the height of his, downward spiral. This was in early 2011. It was actually cool to quote this absolute fuckwad of a human being. Actor and serial abuser Charlie Sheen pleaded no contest to domestic violence charges in 1996. He pleaded guilty to domestic violence charges in 2009. Then finally in 2010, Charlie Sheen pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor assault charge stemming from a domestic abuse case. He was sentenced to 30 days in a California rehabilitation center, 30 days of probation, and 36 hours of anger management. And that's just, that's like, you know, the illegal stuff he did. Then like he got fired from 2.5 Men for, again, anti-Semitism. That's kind of a reoccurring theme on this list, going back to the Mel Gibson shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what can you say, Evan? He's by winning.
Oh, yeah. You know, he came to Toronto to do a raunchy stand-up comedy show, and one of my buddies at the time was actually at that, and apparently Russell Peters, another comedian, was there like with him. It was kind of like a roast, and the thing was a complete shit show. Russell Peters, if my memory serves me correctly, my buddy told me that anytime Russell Peters opened his mouth, they just booed him off, and then they just encouraged Charlie Sheen to be this absolute, like, I don't even know what the word is, like, this demagogue of, you know, absurdity. So I mean,
just like spout out more memes, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. No, the winning meme was everywhere, and I know I'm bitching about this guy pretty hard, but in 2011 I was Charlie Sheen for Halloween.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And now look where you are.
Yeah, no, I'm doing pretty well for myself.
Yeah, pretty good.
I'm hosting this podcast that millions of people listen to.
Yeah,
we love our viewers.
Yeah, we sure do.
Yeah,
Charlie Sheen's definitely kind of a wild character.
Okay, so the next person on my list is Olympic figure skater Tonya Harding. Harding pleaded guilty to conspiring to hinder the prosecution in 1994. The case, of course, involved the attack against her skating rival Nancy Kerrigan. She was fined $100,000 and sentenced to 3 years of probation. Luckily, Tonya Harding has turned her life around and been able to tell her side of the story thanks in part to the 2017 film I, Tonya. I gotta be honest, good movie. It pissed me off, though, just watching it, because, I don't know, I just found the characters annoying. I didn't like watching, like, her get mistreated and abused by her mother as a little girl. Her husband was abusive. Like, it was just a sad, sordid state of affairs.
Yeah, it was a mess.
Did you see I, Tonya?
I did. I didn't mind it, but it felt very much like it was trying to ape off Scorsese.
Yeah.
And that's all I really have to say about it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of athletes, my next pick is none other than heavyweight champion of the world, or at least at some point, Mr. Mike Tyson. Now, Mike Tyson's charged. He was arrested in July 1991 for the rape of the 18-year-old Desiree Washington, Miss Black, Rhode Island, in an Indianapolis hotel room. His trial took place in the Marion County from January 26th to February 10th, 1992. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison, but the judge suspended the last 4 years, and in the end, Tyson ended up only serving 3 years in jail.
Wow.
Which is, it's substantially less than 10 years. Before, this isn't exactly relevant, but before he was sent to prison, this is where Tyson decided to convert to Islam and adopt a new name. And because of his conviction, Tyson is now required to register as a Tier 2 sex offender under the federal law.
Wow. And, now we're getting into really dark territory.
Yeah, that's the thing. I remember when we were in Washington, we were in the African American Museum?
The African American History Museum.
History Museum, yeah.
That was a cool museum.
Yeah, but when I was in the athlete section, I noticed very quickly that Mike Tyson was like nowhere in sight in in any of the displays.
Yeah. Well, there's Michael Jordan.
There's Michael Jordan. There's Muhammad Ali and many others. But I noticed quite right away that Mike Tyson wasn't like in any of them, despite all his acclaim.
Yeah.
This definitely like ruined a lot of his legacy.
Yeah.
And while he does still show up in things like The Hangover, and while I am a huge fan of Mike Tyson's Mysteries, it's very clear that he's just kind of like making fun of himself now.
Yeah.
And to kind of like alleviate some of the things he's done in the past, but at the same time, in no way can I ever like forgive him for what he did.
Would you consider him, to be a meme of sorts, or not really?
He's kind of he's a bit of a joke, I guess. Like,
yeah.
I know that's definitely what he's doing nowadays. He's kind of just like poking fun at himself, appearing on roasts.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I don't know. Unlike a lot of people on this list, people seem to not really like think too hard about this indiscretion he caused. So.
Well, that's gonna tie into that theme of people not really separating the celebrity from their crime and the art from the actual perpetrator of a crime.
Okay, so yeah, speaking of people who you never in a million years would think they would do anything even slightly wrong, we have Matthew Broderick, Ferris Bueller himself.
Oh Lord,
this one's pretty rough. So in March 5th, 1987, while driving a rented car in Northern Ireland, Broderick and his friend Jennifer Grey from Dirty Dancing and Ferris Bueller were driving along the countryside and crossed into the wrong lane and collided head-on with another car. The driver and her mother were both killed instantly. They were both Broderick and Grey were hospitalized, and Broderick was put on trial. Now, I'm going to pull something up here because this is definitely an interesting scenario here. So, after spending 4 weeks recovering from his injuries, he was initially charged with reckless, careless driving causing death and faced up to 5 years in jail. But he was then convicted of a lesser charge of merely careless driving and was fined merely $175.
Wow.
So you tell me, Evan, if you had the choice of spending 5 years of your life in a prison, not including good behavior, maybe you'll get off early, but there's no guarantee, or merely paying $175. I don't know how much that is in 80s money, but even that sounds like less than $1,000.
Yeah. Well, if I'm gonna, he's worth a lot back then. He was, famous.
He was hot.
He was famous.
Presses.
He was famous for War Games and Ferris Bueller. Yeah, I'm gonna take the fine because that's a speeding ticket in the grand scheme of things. That's the thing. Like, so a lot of these celebrities that we've talked about, their fines are minuscule. Like Emile Hirsch gets fined like less than 5 G's for beating the shit out of an exec.
Meanwhile, this Matthew Broderick got off with it not even so much as a slap on the wrist, more like a flick in the wrist.
Yeah.
However, I must say, and it's pretty evident if you look at the trajectory of his career. I know Michael points this out a lot. If you watch anything by Matthew Broderick in the 90s and even up till present day, you notice that unlike his characters in War Games and Ferris Bueller, where they're like, he's got all the confidence in the world and he's got everything in the palm of his hand, he starts playing very mild-mannered, very timid, very scared characters that have no means of confidence or any sort of
There was a shift in his acting.
There's a shift in his acting. I think that might have something to do with this. I feel like it might have scared him half to death or something. And also about the victims of the incident. Broderick has yet to actually visit the other family members of the departed, and even though the family doesn't really want anything settled, and of course they don't feel like they've been mistried or anything.
And I've heard, correct me if I'm wrong, but they don't even want an apology from him, do they?
They would like to see him one more time, just to bury the hatchet or just mend these scars that haven't really been talked about or mentioned since. And I think Broderick at one point almost did, but then he backed out because he was too anxious.
This is an interesting pick on the list because it's what would I do if I, God forbid, was in this situation where I was responsible for the taking of another human life or human lives?
Well, I mean, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. This kind of incident could easily happen to any one of us.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of thing. I mean, it's shitty, but it kind of feels like it was just one big error that cost the lives of 2 people.
Yeah.
And there's no going back from that.
Yeah.
Hopefully, Broderick can find peace with the family. I hope someday he does talk to them.
Yeah.
I don't know if it will happen, but yeah, there's not much, that's entirely up to him.
Okay, well, if you thought Ferris Bueller was bad, take a look at the fucking principal. Okay, the difference between Matthew Broderick and one Jeffrey Jones is that people will actually hire Matthew Broderick today. Yeah, the product may be, complete and utter cat piss by the time it's done, but, at least the people will hire him for things. Not the case for Jeffrey Jones. In 2002, actor Jeffrey Jones was arrested for possession of child pornography and accused by a 17-year-old boy, who was 14 at the time of the offense, of solicitation to pose for nude photographs. He pleaded no contest to a charge of soliciting a minor. At the time, the misdemeanor charge of possession of child pornography was dropped. He received 5 years probation, counseling, and was forced to register as a sex offender. As of 2019, he is still listed on the U.S. Department of Justice's National Sex Offender Database due to his celebrity crimes. So, yeah, I have never fucking seen this guy in a movie since I think the last thing he did was Stuart Little, and even then he was kind of like the creepy uncle who. Have you seen the first Stuart Little?
Like ages ago, but yeah, I think I remember that. I don't know him from a whole lot of stuff. The only movies I think I can remember him from are Ferris Bueller, Beetlejuice, and Amadeus.
Howard the Duck.
Oh yeah,
he was the demon.
He was the evil dude in Howard the Duck.
Yeah,
he just loves to play slimy people.
Yeah, no, he was really good at... Well, in Stuart Little 2, he wasn't really... He didn't play a villain.
Amadeus, he wasn't slimy either.
Yeah.
He was sleepy.
But I will say this about Jeffrey Jones. What's interesting is I have never... People talk about... Sometimes there are people who will learn of celebrity crimes or even celebrity allegations. Like when a celebrity gets canceled... That means people will stop watching their movies and will call for boycotts of their movies.
Yeah.
I personally don't really agree with boycotting of a movie because you're not just hurting the star you're trying to hurt. You're trying to deplatform. You're hurting everyone who worked on the movie. Like you're hurting the director, you're hurting the co-stars, you're hurting
I get that, but at the same time,
it
is hard to revisit certain movies.
Case in point,
like American Beauty.
Yeah. Oh,
that's a good example.
Oh yeah. There's also one line in A Bug's Life that makes me cringe. He's not on this list, by the way.
Nope.
I have never seen anyone call for a boycott of Ferris Bueller's Day Off because of the Matthew Broderick incident or the whole Jeffrey Jones debacle.
I mean, Jeffrey Gray kicks him in the face enough times to
kind
of make it worthwhile. The guy gets the living shit beat out of him in that movie. So
yeah.
If anything, it's kind of vindicating.
You get to see, the jerk's comeuppance in all its glory. So, next on our list
is Jared Fogle. That's right, Jared the Subway guy. So, yeah, if anyone who's not familiar, I'm sure most people know about him, but this was a guy who started from nothing. He was a morbidly obese man who was trying to get into shape, and the one thing he did is that he increased his exercise regimen. But what got him nationwide attention was that he would eat nothing but Subway. That was a main component of his diet. So Subway liked that because it made their food seem like the healthiest option at the time, and everyone was on board. And this got
here's this bodybuilder endorsing our fattening sandwiches.
Still better than McDonald's.
It's better. Yeah, no. If I have to choose between Subway or McDick's, I'm taking Subway.
Any day of the week. But anyway, so yeah, he became the spokesman of Subway. He got endorsements. He appeared in a wide variety of media, and then he started to engage in a sort of not so good media. He began to get investigated for paying for sex with minors and receiving child pornography, as well as distributing it.
Ooh.
He even traveled at one point to engage in illicit conduct with a minor and was caught before it was could be done, I guess. Anyways, so yeah, he was arrested in 2015, and they raided his home, found all of his electronic equipment, and scanned it. All of his text messages were archived, and yeah.
So they essentially they stripped mined his home.
Well, that's what happens. And yeah, Subway dropped him like a bad habit.
For fucking sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're gonna get canceled for anything, if you're tied to pedophilia or child porn, you're getting canceled.
I'm reading something here where it's a forensic psychiatrist who testified for Fogel's defense team, stated that Fogel suffered from compulsive eating disorder for several years before he started losing the weight, and then he replaced food, once he got fit, with a sense of hypersexuality, which included mild to weak pedophilia. But that diagnosis was not accepted by experts in the psychiatric field and was criticized on social media. You don't really go from like, oh, I eat too much ice cream to, oh, I want too many children on my lap. Yeah. You just don't. That's just not really a dot that you want to connect.
Yeah.
All right, we're getting into the fun ones, aren't we? The next person on my list is a Mr. Roman Polanski. Now, if you're not familiar. If you're not familiar with Polanski, he was a pretty well-respected, highly acclaimed director from his time in the mid to late 60s with films such as Rosemary's Baby and Chinatown. He's also well known as being the husband of actress Sharon Tate, who was murdered by the Manson family while he was away on a shoot. So, years after that happened, on March 1977, Polanski was arrested in a Beverly Wilshire hotel for the sexual assault of a 13-year-old girl who had previously modeled for him, where he would do photo shoots with her around the swimming pool. At the home of Jack Nicholson's, no less. That's odd. Now, that's pretty bad. But what's interesting is that there's actually this sort of conundrum that happened during the trial. So, Polanski had 6 charges against him, and he, that was a mess to read. He was indicted on 6 counts of criminal behavior, including rape. He pleaded not guilty to all charges, and many executives in Hollywood came to his defense. And eventually they went into a plea bargain in which 5 of the 6 charges would be dismissed, and Polanski accepted, naturally. He was ordered to undergo 90 days of psychiatric evaluation, and upon release from prison after 42 days, Polanski agreed to the plea bargain. His penalty to be the time served along with probation. However, he learned that the judge, who was talking among some of his comrades, was going to disregard the plea bargain that he had set up and was willing to sentence Polanski to 50 years in prison, stating the fact that he will make sure that this man will never get out of jail. And there's no way out of it. Polanski knew that, and he wrote to one of his producer friends, Dino De Laurentiis, that I've made up my mind and I'm getting out of here. Being a French citizen, Polanski fled the country to live in France, which he is still to this day living. So he is a fugitive. He has still maintained his work. He still makes films, and in fact, one of them, The Piano, actually got Oscar nominations, and I believe he won a few as well.
Yeah. And
it was almost like, is he really going to go all the way to the U.S. And get captured?
Nope.
Or arrested? No.
So who's accepting the award on his behalf?
Adrian Brody? I don't know. Yeah. That's just it's just a weird situation, like how he managed to like just barely slip out of the clutches of the law, and he's still at large to this day, and they can't do anything because he's in a different country.
But what I didn't know was he actually did go to jail for a couple of years, but the judge wanted him in jail forever.
They wanted to extend his sentence, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's too bad. He was a talented man, and kind of ruined everything, to be honest.
Yeah, but it's one of those situations where it's like, people will struggle with like the moral conflict of separating the artist from the art from the artist.
Kind of like Woody Allen or something. Like, I love his movies, but I can't deny there's been a lot of allegations against him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who's next on our list?
This guy, who's next on our list needs no introduction because most of Western civilization watched this trial in real time. O.J. Simpson. NFL legend O.J. Simpson is not only a notorious murder suspect, but he also spent 9 years in a Nevada prison after being found guilty of armed robbery and kidnapping during a 2007 incident. He was originally sentenced to 33 years, but was paroled in 2017. O.J.'s celebrity crimes are some of the most widely covered in history.
That's gotta really rub some salt on the wound. It's like you're already like on thin ice when you got out of that incident with Nicole Brown Simpson.
Oh yeah.
And then like sure enough, he has armed robbery and kidnapping in some event in 2007. That's pretty nuts. I remember there was a show. I think it was either late 90s or later 2000s. Some shitty reality show he did called Juiced.
Oh.
It was kind of like Punk'd, where he would like dress up in offensive costumes and just show up on people's properties.
Wow.
Like either as a pizza delivery guy, and then he would take off the disguise and be like, "Hey, you just got juiced." And the whole joke is, hey, it's a guy who was convicted of murdering his wife and got away with it.
Wow.
Aren't you entertained? It got canceled.
Is that the show where like he's walking his dog and then he just lets the dog take a stinking CGI shit on the guy's driveway? Or am I thinking of something else?
You're thinking of someone else. That's
okay.
Not, I forget that guy's name, but that's not O.J. Simpson.
Oh yeah, fair enough. Must be some other asshole comedian.
Yeah.
The other guy who I want to talk about next was also, I think he might be the most notorious guy on this list because we're nearing the end here. Mm-hmm. Fucking Bill Cosby. This motherfucker is going to die in jail. Over 50 women came forward with stories of sexual misconduct, drugging, and abuse from comedian Bill Cosby. After some setbacks, Cosby was finally sentenced to prison in 2018 for drugging and sexually assaulting Andrea Constand. He was sentenced to 3 to 10 years for the crimes. Although it was only a conviction for the celebrity crimes against one woman, his trial contained testimony from 5 other witnesses who Cosby allegedly attacked to show that he had a pattern. Cosby lost his appeal and will serve his sentence. Yeah, no, like I said, he's really old, and I gotta be honest, like I was never really into any of Cosby's comedy work, or but yeah,
he was certainly huge for his time, definitely popular, and it's very upsetting to know how he took his power and his influence and totally ruined it. By being what he was. I think I heard a story. He was in prison and someone like kicked his ass and like over a Jello pop or something. Which is kind of funny because he was a sponsor for Jello pops.
Wow.
So it's like Jared Fogle. It's like if he beat Jared Fogle's ass with a foot-long sandwich.
Yeah.
There's some dark irony there.
Yeah, really.
All right. So our last entry on this list. He's not the most heinous man or woman on this list, but the reason why he's at the end is that there's just a lot to say about this one character, and it's almost as if he just never knows when to quit.
It's almost as if he's a dick.
Yeah. Could almost say he's a dick of Andy-like proportions.
Oh, God.
Mr. Andy Dick.
So where do we begin with this prick?
Well, this is a very long...
Yeah, no, there's a fucking... We're reading off the Wikipedia page here, audience, and there's a fucking novel about...
It's like a page long, so we'll summarize. So, one of his first incidences was in 1999. Dick was questioned about the suicide of actor David Strickland and identified his body. Strickland hung himself with a bedsheet over the ceiling beam after spending 3 days with Dick in a strip club. He was 29 years old. Dick was not charged by any means, but his correlation with the death was rather questionable, especially, and we'll get into that later when we start talking about Phil Hartman. The same year, Dick drove his car into a utility pole in Hollywood. He was charged with possession of cocaine, cannabis, and drug paraphernalia while driving under the influence. He later pleaded guilty to the felony and 2 other misdemeanor charges.
It was also a hit and run, too.
Yeah. After Dick completed an 18-month drug diversion program, they dismissed the felony. And on December 4th, 2004, a couple years later, Dick was arrested for indecent exposure after he exposed his buttocks at a local McDonald's.
Oh, no. Yeah, that'll get you on another sex offender registry. I want to read the next one. On July 16th, 2006, Dick was arrested in Murrieta, California, on suspicion of drug possession and sexual battery. He exposed the breast of a 17-year-old girl when he allegedly grabbed and pulled down her tank top and her brassiere. During a search of his person, police reported finding a small quantity of cannabis and one Xanax tablet, for which Dick did not have a prescription in his pants front pockets. He was released from jail after posting a $5,000 bail. Dick eventually pleaded guilty to misdemeanor battery and marijuana possession. He was sentenced to 3 years probation and had to pay $700 in fines and was ordered to wear an alcohol monitoring bracelet for 1 year. Holy fuck.
That's not all. On January 23rd, 2010, Dick was arrested around 4 a.m. at a bar near West Virginia on charges of sexual abuse after reportedly groping a bartender and a patron. He was released from jail after pleading not guilty and posting a $60,000 bail.
Who the fuck is bailing him out?
He has money. He has money.
Sure.
In June 2011, Dick was formally indicted by a Cabell County grand jury for 2 counts of first-degree sexual abuse, to which he also pleaded not guilty. After several delays, in 2012, Dick was given a 6-month pretrial diversion. An assistant prosecutor said the agreement stated that if Dick would stay out of legal trouble for 6 months, the criminal charges would be dismissed.
And?
Criminal charges were dismissed after Dick completed the pretrial diversion program. However, in 2012, the 2 alleged victims filed a civil suit against Dick for unspecified damages. In March 2018, his second wife, Lena Sved, obtained a restraining order against Dick, requiring him to stay at least 100 yards away from Zed and the couple's children, Jacob and Meg. The order remaining in effect until March 13th, 2023.
Okay, so that's still ongoing.
Yeah, it's not over yet. In June 2018, he was charged with misdemeanor sexual battery and battery charges for allegedly groping a woman in April of that year. Dick pleaded not guilty to charges when he grabbed an Uber driver by the genitals.
So for the last 20 years, it has been one fucking thing after another with this guy.
Those are criminal charges. There's still a lot of stuff about him.
Yeah.
In 2005, Dick dropped his pants and exposed his genitals to the audience of a Yuck Yucks in Edmonton, and he was ushered off the stage and his second night was canceled. He groped Pamela Anderson during her 2005 Comedy Central roast.
Oh my god.
He joked that he was her plastic surgeon and used the premise to repeatedly grab her breasts. During the roast, Dick also attempted to grope Courtney Love, who proceeded to slap him across the face.
Good for her.
Yeah, good for you, Courtney Love. I don't love you, but, hell, I don't blame you for doing that.
Yeah.
Oh, God. In 2006, Dick upset the audience of the Improv in Los Angeles by referencing Michael Richards' racial tirades and using the exact same words that he used, which kicked him off and banned him from the venue. He apologized and offered his claim that he was merely using humor to make light of a situation that wasn't funny, and that he was sorry that he offended anyone. I don't really get what the point of that was. Like that, if it ruined one comedian's career, what gives you the clout that it would not, hurt your career? I guess he didn't care at this point.
Yeah.
Here you go, Evan. In 2007, Dick was forcibly removed from the stage during an appearance on Jimmy Kimmel Live after repeatedly touching guest Ivanka Trump. Kimmel called in security guards who dragged Dick off the stage by his legs. And
wow.
Kimmel later stated that his behavior was very unacceptable and while he thought he was being humorous, he could tell that everyone else was very uncomfortable around him.
Do we have a copy of this clip that we can just throw up on the screen?
I got some stuff here.
Lay out the glitter on your legs.
Oh, you
so
know.
Andy, don't touch Ivanka. Andy, please don't. Donald Trump will kill both of us.
My father made you promise to defend my honor.
Never would have allowed you to come here if he'd known Andy was here. Andy.
Sloppy kiss
All right, that's
on
all.
the lips.
Andy, you can't get everybody here. Hold on. Get him by his feet.
In 2010, Dick was seen exposing himself and making a commotion at a cafe in Hollywood. He really lives up to his namesake, doesn't he?
No
Good
fucking
God.
kidding, this guy does.
In 2011, Dick was thrown out of the AVN Awards, the Adult Video.
A guy named Andy Dick thrown out of the Adult Video Awards.
After repeatedly groping and stalking an adult film star and a drag queen.
No fucking surprise. After that whole Pamela Anderson shit, no fucking surprises there.
Yeah. In 2011, Dick was at a party. He appeared intoxicated, exposed himself, urinated on the backdrop of a film festival, and afterwards destroyed it by pulling it down. The organizers claimed that this caused thousands of dollars worth of damage and considered suing Dick over the incident. What else? Well, what more can we say? In 2017, Dick was fired from a role from an So this is him when he comes to his acting career.
Okay.
This late into the game, after all the shit he's done.
Yeah, though the Wiki, like we said, the Wikipedia page is a fucking novel of obscenities.
In 2017, Dick was fired from a role in the independent film Raising Buchanan due to allegations of inappropriate behavior, which included groping people's genitals, unwanted kissing and licking, and sexual propositions of at least 4 members of the crew.
Wow.
While he denied most of these, he went on to say, "I might have kissed somebody on the cheek to say goodbye, and then licked them. That's my thing. I licked Carrie Fisher at a roast. It's just me being funny." He also got fired from and escorted off the set from another film called Vampire Dad due to basically the exact same shit. And he blamed it on his medication and said that it made him a little loopy and that he would promise not to lick anyone's faces anymore. Here's a really recent one. In 2019, he was attacked by a man who knocked him out with a punch to the head.
Oh, he's the victim this time.
Yeah, but this is one where Dick actually gets his ass kicked. Which caused Dick to be sent to the hospital to be monitored for internal bleeding in the brain. The man accused Dick of groping him, and he punched him in retaliation.
It took 20 years for this guy to get his ass handed to him for all this shit.
More than that.
Yeah.
And now I mentioned this before, but we should probably mention Phil Hartman. So,
oh boy.
Phil Hartman, John Lovitz, and Dick starred in a show called News Radio back in the late 90s. Dick, being the party animal that he is, as you can see, had given Hartman's wife, Bryn, cocaine at a Christmas party. Now, the thing about Bryn was she was a recovering addict.
Oh, no.
A very unstable one at that. And once she started using the drugs that Dick offered her, it culminated in her having a nervous breakdown and incidentally killing Hartman by shooting him to death, and then ending her own life at the same right afterwards. John Lovitz has gone on record to say that he personally blames Andy Dick for the entire travesty, and has vowed to never speak to him again. And he sometimes, whenever he gets into a spout with him, he often has to be like the bigger man and kind of apologize. But Andy Dick often doesn't play to that. Because they're in early 2007, 10 years afterwards, Dick approached Lovitz at a restaurant and said, "I put the Phil Hartman hex on you, and you'll be the next to die."
Wow.
Yeah.
Like, what goes through Andy Dick's brain?
And then, and afterwards, like, Lovitz, like, got into a physical altercation with him afterwards. Lovitz demanded an apology from Dick, who refused and accused Lovitz of blaming him for Hartman's death. Lovitz then smashed Dick's head into a bar.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I have no sympathy for this guy whatsoever.
No, I don't know what to say about this guy. It's very clear. Apparently, it's been said that he's been through rehab more than 20 times. I've seen...
At least once a year at this point.
Yeah, I've seen modern... He has, like... I watched Deep Fat Fried roast him on a stream he did where it's just him in some hotel room. One of his sons is, like, sleeping on a mattress on the floor. And he's playing music super loud. He's clearly intoxicated and mumbling incoherently. It's a very, very sad sight. And one of his coworkers calls him, and they're just asking if he's okay. And it's like, what do you think? What are you gonna do while you're in Washington? What if I'm not okay? You're gonna run all the way over here? It's too late for me. Like I just think he really needs help. And I don't condone a single one of his actions. One of them, all the altercations we just listed here, but it's very clear that Andy Dick has had these deep-seated issues for a long time, and he should have been recovering a lot earlier than this, because I don't know what he can possibly do now. I think he's in a...
Yeah, well,
I
know
toast.
He didn't go to jail for the Phil Hartman shit, but, pulling that garbage on John Lovitz saying, oh, you're gonna be the next Hartman, and that I'm gonna fucking be responsible for your death. Fuck you, Andy Dick. Fuck you.
And with that, we thank you for joining us on this rather sobering episode of So to Speak.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. If you ever meet one of your celebrity heroes, just know that they've had their run-ins with the law. More than likely. Peace out.
Take care. Be good.
No, seriously, please be good.